Welcome to the GAMERamble video review for 80's OVERDRIVE, narrated by me, DarkCloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GAMERamble website linked below. The TLDR for 80's OVERDRIVE is that it harkens back to an era where neon colors, synth music and fast cars were all the rage. Players can make their way through a 37 race career mode while purchasing new cars and upgrades along the way, or hop into the time attack mode for a race against the clock. Fortunately, the track editor is a little lacking, but tweaking all the variables does result in some interesting tracks. While the game can be a bit of a grind and has its fair share of frustrating moments, it's still a blast to play and something fans of the genre will enjoy. Gameplay receives a 7 out of 10. Race as fast as possible while dodging traffic, cops and obstacles. Graphics receives an 8 out of 10. The pixel art is vibrant and detailed, and there are plenty of track themes. Sound receives a 7 out of 10. Sound effects are a little harsh, but the soundtrack is great. The overall score for 80's OVERDRIVE is 7.3 out of 10. And now for the full review. Some things belong together, such as neon colors, synth sounds, and sports cars. 80's OVERDRIVE by Insync Code combines all of these into a 2D pixel art racing game aimed squarely at retro enthusiasts with fond memories of titles like Outrun and Rad Racer. The game was initially released on a Nintendo 3DS, but certainly doesn't look out of place on PC. When starting up 80's OVERDRIVE, players are presented with 3 different choices. Career mode is the best starting point as it challenges players to 37 races that become progressively more challenging. Time attack is more akin to the spirit of the genre and sees players try and make it as far as possible before the clock runs out. Reaching checkpoints adds some time to the clock, as does driving dangerously close to other vehicles on the road. Last up is the track editor, which is basically a series of variables that can be adjusted to generate new tracks. The cars in 80's OVERDRIVE are all based on coveted sports cars from the 80's, but with slightly tweaked names to avoid legal issues. For example, instead of a Ferrari Testarossa, players can slide behind the steering wheel of a Testorando, or take the DeLorean for a spin instead of a DeLorean. There are 6 cars in total, and unlockable 7 for players who can complete all the races and beat the mysterious final opponent. The goal in career mode is to get a podium finish, as there are no rewards for not finishing in the top 3. It not only costs money to enter a race, but players must also pay for damages and fuel afterward. This means that players can lose money even with a podium finish if they're not careful about avoiding other cars or obstacles. Unfortunately, there is usually civilian traffic on the roads during races, and they have no qualms about driving erratically or sideswiping your vehicle. Even worse, some tracks have police patrols, and they are even more determined to end your race if you pass them. A single crash can make it impossible to win the race in later races, but thankfully there's no penalty for restarting and trying again. Finishing a race rewards players with some cash, which can be spent on upgrading their vehicle or purchasing a new one. The engine, steering and bumpers of all cars can be upgraded to improve their speed, handling and durability. In addition, players can purchase nitros, which can be used twice per race for a short speed burst, and a radar which warns of nearby police cars. Finally, players are sometimes presented with optional challenges by a shady looking character to make things a little more interesting. These range from picking up packages en route to beating specific races or damaging their cars. Completing these usually results in a nice wad of cash, so they are worth accepting. Visually, 80's OVERDRIVE looks like a high-resolution pixel art game with vibrant colors and the type of sprite scaling that was popular in Outrun, Hang On and other retro arcade titles. The action is viewed from behind your vehicle and everything looks very sharp and clear. 80's OVERDRIVE also runs very smoothly, making it a pleasure to speed through the forest, desert, cities, mountains, coastlines and other areas. However, the number of lanes can increase and decrease, making it trickier to dodge traffic and police cars. The lack of map also makes it hard to see where you are in relation to the other racers. Another minor gripe is that sometimes the other racers on the track display an emoji above their cars. These are humorous, but unfortunately they can also obscure your view of the road ahead. Overall though, the interface is quite clean, and only the corners of the screen are dedicated to information, such as your progress in the race, position in the race, damage taken, fuel left, and speed. 80's OVERDRIVE nails the 80's atmosphere with a synth-laden soundtrack featuring the likes of Vector Wolf, Corollas, Angst 78, and more. Players can choose one of the 18 tracks to listen to at the start of the race or cycle through them while driving. The sound effects such as tires screeching and car horns are a little loud but can be toned down. The game is an arcade title through and through, so players expecting realistic handling will be disappointed. The controls work fine for the most part though, and weaving through traffic can be immensely satisfying. It's a little unfair that the police only targets your vehicle, and some of the other cars on the road are downright malicious in the way they will swerve in front of you, but this is to be expected from the genre. It's a good thing that there's no penalty for restarting races in 80's Overdrive, as without it the game would have been an even bigger grind than what it already is. Going from first to last and having to pay for a ton of repairs after a crash is not a lot of fun, so restarting is usually the most sensible option. Races are divided into short, medium and long tracks, but none of them feel too long. Completing all the tracks and unlocking the Penetrator 808 also makes playing the time attack mode a lot more fun. There's no damage in time trial mode, so players are free to focus on getting as far as possible. Overall, 80's Overdrive is a nice homage to the 80's, and a title that fans of Outrun, Rad Racer and similar games will enjoy. It can be frustrating at times, but listening to the music while getting into the zone and completing a perfect race is a great experience. It is a pity that the game does not have any multiplayer options, as this could have further increased its longevity. While there are plenty of minor issues to nitpick, there's enough here to keep fans of the genre busy for quite some time. 80's Overdrive is not the first game to be influenced by the classic 80's arcade racing games, but it is one of the better ones. Thanks for joining me for this 80's Overdrive PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.